Hey, good morning. I'm happy to be here. I was mentioning before, when I graduated college at Yeshiva University, so I had 2 job offers to go south. When I was in college, I did a lot of kiruv around the United States and the Achaned. By the way, am I allowed to take off my mask to speak?
Yeah.
That's okay? Yeah. I have 3 vaccinations. It's okay? All right. So one of those offers is actually to come down to Atlanta to teach high school. So, and I never made it. Instead, I made Aliyah and moved to Israel. So I guess this is some closing of the circle. How many of you know what venture capital is? All right. A small number of people in the room. You want to explain it?
Yeah, it's where you invest money in startups.
We invest money in startup technology companies. And that's what I've been doing for the last 25 years in Israel. That's actually my day job. And we raise money from institutions around the world, big institutions around the world, mostly from the United States in our case, and invest them in small Israeli startups, just like they're getting started. Now, why does somebody start a company? What's your name? Gabi. Gabi says because they want money. Let me tell you something. There's a lot easier way for smart people to make money than to start a startup. Yeah, go ahead.
Make a change.
Make a change. That's very good. Anyone want to add on?
Like they think they have a good idea.
They think they have a good idea.
Be self-employed.
They what? Be self-employed. That's certainly one of them. Most entrepreneurs walk around during the day. They see something that's wrong. They have a unique insight. Your point and idea. Unique insight. And they say, I can change that. I can change that. And when I invest money, I'm investing in change. In this notion that using the tools of technology, which are incredibly powerful, we can create change. And hopefully, change for the better. Now, you may not be aware of this, but the largest companies by market capitalization, that means with the highest value in the United States, today, in 2021, are venture capital backed. These are things that started with $2 or $3 million in investment. Somebody with an idea who says, I can make the world's information easier to organize. What company is that? Google. It started with venture capital. I can make delivery of products seamless and a wonderful consumer experience. Who's that? Amazon, right? And I can make a device that we can collapse an encyclopedia, which used to take up shelves like that, a Gemara, which takes up shelves like that, the phone book, which takes up shelves like that, and put it into a little computer that's a supercomputer in the palm of my hand. What's that? All these companies were started with venture capital. All of them. And PayPal, how many use your PayPal? All right, and PayPal, and many, 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 many others. Companies that have taken venture capital to make a meaningful change in the world. It's so meaningful that we don't even pay attention to how many things are no longer around, one, because you're young, but for those of us who are older, because of these innovations. When we were kids, if you couldn't find a phone number, you took out a phone book. It was this thick. When I write my Sfarim, when I first got started, I used to take out Sfarim. I'd lay it out on the table, my wife would get angry. I never put them away. And now I just use my computer. And even my phone. On the way down here, I was working on a piece in an upcoming sefer on Bamidbar, and I take out my phone. And you can look it up. And so, all of these things are moving the world forward. That's my day job. And I want to try to explain to you that if venture capital is new, and by the way, it's a uniquely American thing. It really started in Silicon Valley. It now exists globally, but it has a few centers. Silicon Valley, Boston, New York, a little bit in Austin, Miami emerging, and Tel Aviv. And then a little bit in Shanghai and Bangalore. But it's a small number of places in the world where the vast majority of the change that you're experiencing and will experience is coming from. Israel, Tel Aviv in particular, is one of those places. Now I want to segue from that for a second. I'll come back to it. To the book of Bereshis. I ask you a really simple question. Who is the first innovator in the book of Bereshis, and what did that person person invent? Anyone want to hazard a guess?
God.
One person, yeah, I just can't hear where he's coming from, he's all behind masks. Who's the first innovator?
God.
Yeah, somebody, of course, is going to say that, right? He created the world. But yeah. What's that? Adam's children. Who specifically? Not one of his children, really, but. Well, killing is kind of an innovation, but. Well, I'm not sure about that. Go ahead.
Noah? Noah?
Noah's a good guess. There's one before Noah. We're going to come to Noah in a second. Noah in a second.
How about Adam? They made Adam. How about make clothes?
Oh, no, God made them clothes, but they did make something else. Bread, right? Torah says, if you want to start to eat, you start making bread when you leave God ate. That was actually an innovation back then. And so Torah begins with this innovation. Afterwards, we have Avi, Kol Tofes, Kinor, Vugav, musical instruments are invented, and other things are invented. That's the first parsha. And then we come to,
Noah.
what is Noah's first invention?
The plow. The
Say
plow.
it again.
The plow.
The plow. The plow. Now, the plow is really important. The plow is really important. Stay with me here. Why is the plow so important? Why is the plow so important? So first of all, it's Chazal who tell us they invented the plow. It's not mifurash, it's not explicit in the psukim. But we can actually figure it out from the psukim if we pay very careful attention. You know how? How can we figure it out? Anyone want to guess? Because the Torah gives us 10 generations of people and tells us a single biological fact about these people, and that is their ages when they did different things. Among them are the ages in which they had children. And the curve looks like this. It's descending, going down. People are having children at a younger age, and then it makes a U-turn and goes up until the point where Noah has his children at what age? 500. 500. Right? So it makes a U-turn and goes back up. And the Torah tells us, Noah is the first person where the Torah tells us he has 3 children. But it also tells us that that wasn't his name. His father had a ben, a son. Now what happened here? I think it's pretty obvious, and this is what I think Chazal are getting at. Making food was tough. Right? God said, thorns and thistles, you're going to have to work hard. And the land is cursed. The Torah, in fact, tells us that, right? When it says, they'll call him Noach, it's because he will console us from this cursed ground. And that's where Chazal say he invented the plow. But what had happened was, it was so hard to make food that people stopped having children. That's why the age goes up. This is the first time in history, but not the only time in history. There was a priest. His name was Thomas Malthus, an Anglican priest. He lived a couple hundred years ago. We even have a trap named after him called the Malthusian Trap, which says roughly the following. It says, people are having kids too quickly. The world is going to run out of food. He said that a few hundred years ago. I got news. He was wrong. He was a pessimist. We have 6 times at least more people in the world. That's billions and billions and millions of more people, and you're all going to have lunch today. You'll all have lunch today. We haven't run out of food. He was a pessimist. Thomas Malthus existed in the time of Noah too. His name was Yered. That's why he's called Yered. Right? You're Jared?
I'm Yared.
Yered.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope you'll be more optimistic than the biblical
Oh,
one.
for sure. 'Cause I got
And we can tell because right at him, right when the Torah describes him, Yared, you with me? Yeah, okay, right when the Torah describes him, the age of childbirth starts going up. He's Thomas Malthus. There's not enough food to feed people. It's hard to make food. And then comes Noah, and he invents the plow, and he unleashes and uncorks the bounty of the land. And humanity begins to prosper. Noah is the first person with 3 children. Yes, I'm aware that Adam had 3 children. They weren't at once. One was killed, and then it was Shet. First person the Torah tells us with 3 children, one Shem, Cham, and Yafet. And then it says that people began to multiply. And then what happened? Before the flood, why does the flood come about? They're not doing the right thing. What is not the right thing? prosperity, right? So the first thing they do is they take advantage of women. That's the first thing they do. They saw the women that they were good. These lords, B'nai Elohim. They took advantage. It's the first sign of society going down. And then, what does the Torah tells us happens? It doesn't say steal. It uses a specific word. It's very important to pay attention to words. Every word in the Torah is valuable. What's the word? Go ahead. Hamas. What does Hamas mean? What's your name? Yaakov. What does Hamas mean? Kind of means lying. It means little cheats. The Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud, tells us that a guy would walk into the market, and what would he do? He'd steal just a little bit so that they couldn't come after him and take him to court because it's just too little. Less than a pruta, exactly. Less than a pruta. What does this do? It erodes trust. Trust disappears from society because people steal and cheat a little. They tell a little white lie. A little cheating never hurt anyone. For those of you who read Dan Ariely's book, people rationalize to themselves why they cheat. It's in the Torah. Why I cheat? A little bit. It's just a piece of hummus.
A little shtickle.
What's that?
A little shtickle.
A little shtick. Exactly. Well said. Right? It's just a little bit. That's Hamas. That's how the world destroyed itself. And it destroyed itself from prosperity. Noah unleashes prosperity into the world. He unleashes food. People can have children. Humanity prospers and destroys itself. And then comes the Mabul. But Noah has a second invention. What's his second invention?
Boat.
Well, he builds an ark. God tells him how to build it, so I'm not sure he invents it. But he has a second invention. Anyone? Categorization of animals?
Make a crane to build the ark.
Well, maybe it was a crane, but I don't know.
Wine?
Wine. Excellent.
Oh,
Excellent.
Rabbi.
Excellent. Noah, pay attention. Noah comes out of the teva, he comes out of the ark, and he plants a vineyard. Why does he plant a vineyard? And no, it doesn't make wine to give to God. He gave animals to God before that. What?
Make wine to get drunk.
Well, he got drunk, but why did he drink wine after a flood? You know why? By the way, this is like happening. You know, there have been floods in places. We drink alcohol because it's clean. Wine was called the water of the ancients. The water of the ancients because alcohol is clean. And that was clean water. What?
But you need water to make alcohol.
Yes, you do, but the alcohol cleans it, right? It's not brackish and not infected. This makes a ton of sense. Even after floods today, people, it's still going on, right? So Noah plants a vineyard, and he makes wine, right? And those of you who daven on Rosh Chodesh, what does Baruch Nafshi tell us about wine? Yisamach levav enos, right? We can use it for wonderful things. We go to make weddings on it. We have happy times. It's clean water. What happens to Noah? He gets drunk and he's abused by his son Ham. He also begins to have, again, the beginnings of prosperity post the flood. He's got clean water, right? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? In a land where there's no water, and he's got a vineyard, he's king. But he destroys himself and his family. That's twice, not once. Once with the plow, humanity is destroyed by this amazing innovation. And once with wine. In the time of Noah, humanity destroys itself. And the reason, I'll argue, is these are powerful inventions and innovations. Just like Amazon and PayPal and the iPhone are powerful inventions and innovations. Super powerful. And now we're doing things like, I'm involved with something in synthetic biology. We're going to reprogram human cells. And cloning. We're going to do all this. It's coming. Quick. It's already happening. But innovation, while being powerful, is fraught. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's good, actually. It's really good. You need wine for clean water. We need the plow to increase food production. We need the iPhone. We need synthetic biology to cure diseases. But if we don't get the timeless principles at the core of this right, it goes sideways. And so the Torah introduces us to somebody new post Noah. And who's that? Avram. And Avram comes into the world to introduce the timeless principles of what makes humanity actually work. And let's pay attention. Where does Avram start his career? No, that's in the Midrash, just in the Torah. Where does Avram start his career? I'll come back to that Midrash if you want to say. What? He leaves his home. Where is his home?
Chevron.
No, he's not in Chevron. Go ahead.
Or custom.
Ur Kasdim. Right? He starts in Galut. Stay with us. He starts in Ur Kasdim. And it's a wealthy family. The Torah tells us that Terach has built Rechush. He's built wealth. And Avram leaves. And what does Hashem say? Lecha me'artzcha me'lotecha me'beit avicha el aretz asher areka. By the way, do Ashkenazis here or Sephardi? Okay. Lecha me'artzcha me'lotecha me'beit avicha el aretz asher areka. Ve'eschal l'goy galo v'arecha v'agala shemecha ve'ei bracha. Right? You can have a bracha. What's a bracha? And what does he do? He leaves with who? Who does he leave with? His wife? What? Lot and?
Eliezer.
Well, he's not there yet. It's a nefesh asher asu b'charan. The people he collects and his rechush and his possessions. Abraham comes to the land of Canaan, to Eretz Yisrael, a wealthy man. A wealthy man. Now pay attention. He's got his wife, that's obvious. He's got a bunch of groupies. A nefesh asher asu b'charan. And then he's got his nephew. We know one biographical fact about his nephew. What is it? One.
Lope?
What?
Like Lope?
That Lope. Yeah, that's his name. We know that. What's the biographical fact we know, Yared?
Doesn't he like not muzzle his animals or something?
That's later, maybe according to the Medrash. Rashi, the Medrash. But what else we got? Son of his brother. What else?
Sarah's sister.
Maybe.
Her brother.
He's a man.
What's your name?
Asher?
Asher. Say it again.
He's an orphan.
He's an orphan. Lot's the first orphan in the Torah. First. There might have been others, but he's the first. Avram takes his orphaned nephew and all his possessions, and this is a theme that the Torah returns to all the time. V'ager v'yatom v'amana asher b'kirbecha. Take care of the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. This is not an accident. Avram is a wealthy man. How he made his money, we don't know. He goes to a new place and he never leaves the orphan behind. This is the first introduction in the Torah of the timeless principles of our people and of the Torah for how to manage wealth and innovation and everything that comes from it. And I'll quickly point out to you that the Avot continue to innovate. Not Avram, he's the break point. No innovations from Avram, because he sets up the principles. Yitzchak digs wells next to the Nachal. Hint, you don't dig wells next to a riverbed because they get contaminated. He must have invented something and he becomes super prosperous. Then he made money in Me'asharim. Right? And so he finds prosperity through innovation. And Yaakov, genetic engineering and breeding, right? That's how he takes Lavan's flocks in last week's parsha. And what does Yosef innovate? It should be obvious. Food storage. Excellent. Food storage. Maybe something else too. And food storage. But this comes through. But Avram is the breaking point between innovation that is not buttressed, that does not have timeless principles of taking care and empowering other people underneath it. What happened to Noach? And the later innovations of the Avot, who have those principles that came from Avram, and we can prove it. So what happens to Avram when he comes to Eretz Yisrael? What? Famine. Vayira Baretz, right? Vayir Avram Mitzrayim. Avram goes down to Egypt. Who goes with him to Egypt? Sarah and Lot. When they return, what does the Torah tell us about Lot? The orphan. Asher, what does it tell us? But look, the orphan. Anybody?
Doesn't take care of his cattle, he like lets them eat on them.
That's later when he goes to stone, when he ends up going to stone. But right after it tells us that Avram comes back ever more well-to-do from his time in Egypt, in Mitzrayim, and Lot comes back independently wealthy, to teach you that Avram enables his orphan nephew to become successful. That's part of his mission, that's part of his timeless values, is to enable other people to be successful, not to hoard it himself. And so, in powerful ways, Breshit, Sefer Breshit, through the images, the iconography of the Avot, teaches us a few things that are super relevant for our time. I often joke that you want to find something that's relevant, you want to look for something that stood the test of time. I don't think there's anything that stood the test of time more than the Torah. It's around for thousands of years, and it has more unique users than Google and Facebook combined over time. And people found relevance in it in every generation. And so for our innovation generation, and your generation can innovate even a lot more than mine did, because technology is accelerating, the lessons become incredibly clear. Number one, innovation that doesn't have the timeless principles of Abraham, of empowering other people rather than trampling them, of enabling other people to become independent and self-sufficient and of agency, like Abraham did with Lot. That innovation is not sustainable and is not good. Number two, we should put it to good purposes, because when you don't, humanity destroys itself. That's what happened in Noah's generation. And if it doesn't destroy all of humanity, it'll destroy your family. These are powerful tools. The plow is a powerful tool, wine is a powerful tool, the iPhone is a powerful tool, and Google is a powerful tool. Really powerful. Which means that when something's got momentum and it's got real power, if it veers just a little bit off course, it ends up way over here. So we need to fight to keep it on course and aligned with the timeless values of the Torah. That's what sustains, that's what makes it work. And so, if we don't get it right, or if we give in to what I like to call relativist bonton, like what's floating around the air today, people's values today, it's here today, gone tomorrow, rather than timeless values that have stood the test of thousands of years, humanity goes sideways and abuses these technologies and abuses wealth. The Torah is pro-innovation and pro-wealth. All of the Avot, the Ramban says in Parashat Toldot, that all of the Avot were wealthy. He yells at the Ibn Ezra. The Ibn Ezra said that Yitzchak was poor, and he says, who blinded the Ibn Ezra and caused him to have a heart that is covered or blind? Because the Ibn Ezra said that Yitzchak was poor. He said, no, that's the bracha. We're supposed to innovate. We're supposed to invest in this. You're supposed to become prosperous from this. And then you're supposed to ensure, or alongside of it, simultaneously you must ensure that it empowers other people. That it empowers the orphan, the widow, and everybody else in society so that we can grow the pie. And when I came in, remind me your name again? Felice asked me if I was going to San Francisco, to Palo Alto, Silicon Valley. I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley in my career. I used to go there 1 week a month. For like 25 years, I flew from Israel to Silicon Valley for a week a month. And one of my observations is the big difference between the Israel innovation ecosystem and in some cases the Silicon Valley ecosystem is exactly what I'm talking about. What are the underlying principles, the timeless principles, that drive innovation? What are the timeless principles that cause me to choose what it is I'm going to invest my time to make change in? What am I going to do? So I'll tell you a story. There's a guy named Eran Shir. I love this guy. Eran Shir sold his first company to Yahoo. He then says, hey, I can can solve car accidents. I think I know how to do that. And make it accessible to everybody. Like, you don't need to buy a very expensive system. We just do it with a $50 dash cam and a phone. And I can map all the cars in the world cheaply and be able to spread this innovation to anybody. And I'm going to save lives. That mission underpinning of I'm going to go save lives has now created the second largest database of cars and roads and everything going on the roads in the world, second to Tesla. A Tesla costs $50,000. Our thing costs $60 and a piece of software on your phone, which makes it empowering and available to everyone. But because of that also, I got news for you. In the 20th century, when the economy is growing based on the Industrial Revolution, the core piece, the core thing that drove economic output and prosperity was? Who said that? What was it?
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing. Manufacturing. A factory, a machine. In the 21st century, what is the core driver of economic prosperity? Software. What is software?
Coding.
Where does it come from?
Technology.
Oh,
Information.
what?
Information.
Information is what gets into the software. People. People. People's brains, right? And so with blinding biological insight, I'll tell you that every brain is connected to a head, is connected to a body, and every body there's a heart. So if you want to bring the best and the brightest brains to work on the hardest problem, how should you recruit them? Talk to their hearts, to their mission. And so in Tel Aviv, time after time after time, for the last decade plus, I've seen entrepreneurs walk in and say, how do I recruit the smartest minds to work on the biggest problems that require the most change? I talk to their heart and the timeless values. I talk to their heart. We can diffuse medical technologies using the smartphone or other things. And I get the smartest people to work on it because they'll save lives. Because they'll empower other people to rise up financially. And that's, I know you're only 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 right now, but that's where you're headed. Like, you're the carriers of that torch of Abraham, into a world of an innovation economy to make sure we don't become Noah. To be prosperous and innovative, but ensure that the values you learn here in the Beit Midrash form the foundation for these technologies, and that you use them to empower other people to be successful. Orphans, people who don't have opportunities. Orphan's a code name for people who haven't had opportunity. That's your job. That's what you got to get after. And I know it feels far away, but I guarantee it's really close. I can still remember when I was your age, and I'm 50 now. It's close, and time goes by quick. I hope you'll come choose to do that in Israel. I really do. That's our place. I really do. And that's where I think this merging of the timeless values and innovation is happening. And if you do, you're all welcome for Shabbat or stay at our house or anything else. But come. That's where I hope you'll decide to go do this. But even if you decide to do it somewhere else, do it in a way, you're all going to be in this economy, almost all of you, because that's where the economy's going. It's all digitizing. Do it in a way where you take these powerful tools of innovation and wealth creation and use them for good, for empowering other people and making it work. That's your challenge. When I was 19 years old, I went to yeshiva in Israel. I get the goosebumps when I tell the story. I went to yeshiva in Israel. It was my second year. It was right after the first Gulf War, so the year is 1991. And I'm in a room, in an auditorium just like this, and we're 15 or so people, and Rabbi Yehuda Mital, Zichrono Livracha, was the Rosh Yeshiva, was in the room. I didn't have much of a relationship with him at the time. I raised my hand, and with trepidation, I asked him the following question. Is there a bigger mitzvah, a bigger commandment, of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, of settling the land of Israel, for somebody who makes Aliyah, moves to Israel, and moves to an unpopulated place, the Negev, the Galil, or if they move to a populated place like Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, it's the same mitzvah. And he looked at me and he said, Zakol shtuyot. It's all nonsense. Absolute and total nonsense. You need to move to Israel, which I was not planning on doing at the time. You need to move to Israel, make Aliyah, and build a factory that will employ 10,000 people that will earn an honest and decent living. 10,000 other people that will earn an honest and decent living. I sat there and said, whoa. I never heard a rabbi, talk about business and the economy. And that's my job, my civic responsibility, my total responsibility to enable other people to earn an honest and decent living. And at that moment, I decided to make Aliyah and to try to employ 10,000 people. That was the goal. That's the values you pick up from great people like Rav Mikal. And so those goals of empowering other people to be independent and successful and prosperous should also inform your life path. That's what the Avot wanted, and that's what's kept us going for thousands and thousands of years. And so I wish you a lot of hatzlacha in that path. And make sure you understand the timeless text, the Torah, that underpins all this. Because if you're not owning it, it's hard to keep it with you. It's hard. It needs to be a commitment, and commitment is hard. So you got to own it as you go through life. Thank you for having me.